After introducing Galadriel and exploring her kinship with the rest of the princes of the Ñoldor and her status as one of the most powerful elves of Valinor, we now delve deeper into her early actions. Today on The Homely House we conclude the life of Galadriel in Valinor. Between 1449 and 1450 of the Years of the Trees, Fëanor, being come to his full might, begins a long and secret labor, and summoning all his power and his subtle skill, he creates in the end the Silmarils. These are 3 great jewels in form, but their inner fire Fëanor makes of the blended light of the 2 trees of Valinor. 45 years of the trees later, in 1495, Morgoth and Ungoliant, the ancestor of Shelob, destroy the 2 trees of Valinor and steal the Silmarils of Fëanor, and they flee to Middle-earth. Afterwards, turmoil befalls the land of the Valar. Fëanor appears suddenly in Tirion, the city of the Ñoldor, and calls on all the elves to come to the high court of the king. Swiftly a great multitude of them gathers about him to hear his speech. Fëanor is a master of words, and his tongue has great power over hearts when he uses it. Hearing him speaking, many of the Ñoldor are stirred to madness. Then, urging the Ñoldor to rebel against the Valar, he and his 7 sons swear a terrible oath, an oath that will thereafter affect the whole of Middle-earth's history. Fëanor's words influence even the royal family of the Ñoldor, while many of them stand against Fëanor, such as her brother Finrod and her father Finarfin. Galadriel herself is among those who desire to depart from Valinor, though for reasons different than Fëanor's. But Galadriel, the only woman of the Ñoldor to stand that day tall and valiant among the contending princes, was eager to be gone. No oath she swore, but the words of Fëanor concerning Middle-earth had kindled in her heart, for she yearned to see the white unguarded lands and to rule their realm at her own will. Of like mind with Galadriel is her cousin Fingon, Fingolfin's son, being also moved by Fëanor's words. Another reason for which Galadriel is willing to join the rebellion of the Ñoldor is to aid her Sindarin relatives in Middle-earth, the kin of her mother and grandfather Olwe, and his children were thus the kin of King Eleuthingol of Doriath in Beleriand, for he was the brother of Olwe, and this kinship influenced their decision to join in the exile and proved of great importance later in Beleriand. So Galadriel eventually joins the flight of the Ñoldor as one of the leaders of the second host, the host of Fingolfin. So it came to pass that when the light of Valinor failed, forever as the Ñoldor thought, she joined the rebellion against the Valar, who commanded them to stay, and once she had set foot upon that road of exile she would not relent, but rejected the last message of the Valar and came under the doom of Mandos. Moving on, Fëanor, aiming to follow Morgoth, leads the Ñoldor northward, and he reaches Alqualondë, the city of the Falmari, Galadriel's kin through her mother. Then with the grace of his words he speaks with the Teleri, asking them to lend him their ships, but the Teleri are unmoved and they rather try to dissuade him from departing. Thus Fëanor and his host head to the haven of the Swans, beginning to steal their ships. But the Teleri withstand him, and so befalls the first Kinslaying, the first of the 3 slayings of elf by elf. In this conflict Galadriel arrives with the second host of the Ñoldor, which shows up later than Fëanor's, and she fights against him and his followers. Even after the merciless assault upon the Teleri and the rape of their ships, though she fought fiercely against Fëanor in defense of her mother's kin, she did not turn back. In the nature of Middle-earth we are also told that in this confrontation Galadriel quarrels and fights with the sons of Fëanor, and that she has little love for them. In the end the Teleri are overcome and the Ñoldor win the day. Thereupon Fëanor and his host man the ships of the Teleri, and the Ñoldor head north along the coast, the ones bound to Fëanor by ship and those following Fingolfin and Finarfin by land. Galadriel is still unwilling to turn back, and so far from joining in Fëanor's revolt she stands in every way opposed to him. Her pride was unwilling to return a defeated suppliant for pardon, but now she burned with desire to follow Fëanor with her anger to whatever lands he might come, and to thwart him in all ways that she could. The way north is long and ever more evil as Galadriel and the rest go forward. They march for a great while in the unmeasured night until they reach Aman near the Helcaraxë, the grinding ice in the far north of Farda. There Galadriel and the rest behold suddenly a dark figure standing high upon a rock, and some believe that it is the Valar Mandos himself. The figure then speaks the doom of the Ñoldor, the curse pronouncing that great woe will come upon the elves who will abandon the blessed realm. At this hour Finarfin, Galadriel's father, forsakes the march and turns back, becoming the king of the Ñoldor in Valinor. But Galadriel and her brothers do not relent and they keep moving forward. Deeming the Helcaraxë impassable, Fëanor and his son suddenly seize the ships of the Silmarils and head for Middle-earth. Galadriel remains behind with Fingolfin and the rest of her family. Upon reaching the Lammoth, the empty coastland in the northwestern part of Beleriand, Fëanor burns the ships of the Teleri and Galadriel and the rest see the light from afar, perceiving now that they are betrayed. Then Fingolfin, seeing that Fëanor had left him to perish in Aman or return in shame to Valinor, was filled with bitterness, but he desired now as never before to come by some way to Middle-earth and meet Fëanor again. And he and his host wandered long in misery, but their valor and endurance grew with hardship. For they were a mighty people, the elder children undying of Eru Ilúvatar, but newcome from the blessed realm and not yet weary with the weariness of earth. The fire of their hearts was young, and led by Fingolfin and his sons, and by Finrod and Galadriel, the valiant and fair, they dared to pass into the bitterest north. And finding no other way, they endured at last the terror of the Helcaraxë and the cruel hills of ice. Few of the deeds of the Ñoldor thereafter surpassed that desperate crossing in hardihood or woe. There Elenwe, the wife of Turgon, was lost, and many others perished also, and it was with a lessened host that Fingolfin set foot at last upon the outer lands. Small love for Fëanor or his sons had those that marched at last behind him, and blew their trumpets in Middle-earth at the first rising of the moon. Galadriel's story is one of the greatest and one of the longest we can find in Tolkien's Legendarium. We will cover the rest of her fascinating life in future videos. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one on the Homely House. Na Marya.